What's up, Neil?
Hi, how are you? My name's Neil, and you're Adam. And this is Don't Shit on the Bus.
Welcome to another episode of Don't Shit on the Bus. This week's guest is none other than Mattew Flyzik, a production manager and a tour manager who works for Kygo. But we both met him when he worked for All Time Low back in the day.
Yeah, he's badass. He's just like one of the most well put together people I've ever met on the road. A lot of times, like, you meet people that are like his age and you're like, oh, you know, you're like us, but he's not. He's really well put together. He is so organized, has an answer for everything, which I think is very important whenever you're either the production manager or the tour manager, whatever your duty calls, because he is both.
Yeah, and it takes the right type of person to do production manager and tour manager. I don't know what type of person it is, but Mattew Flyzik is that person, which is pretty much just the most organized, like you said, put together person with an answer to everything. He just makes touring so easy, and he's got this friendly kind of straight to the point attitude that makes me feel like, all right, everything's going to be all right because Mattew Flyzik's here.
Yeah, he's like one of those people you can just talk to about anything, and it's kind of good that he has all the answers because he's just that easy to talk to. So, you know, he's just like one of those people, like you look at him and you're like, man, you really have done a lot in your life, and you're here with us, and you're our age, and you're a friend, and you're in charge, and I'm okay with that because you're good at what you do. There's not many people that I've met on the road that usually check all of those boxes, but Matt really does.
Yes, he is the perfect candidate for his job, and we're excited to share with you all the knowledge that he has to share. So he's going to talk a lot about the importance of networking and kind of working with your crew and being on the road and being family. Our personal experience, Neil and I, has been touring with him. I've toured with All Time Low working for them, and Neil's toured with them as another artist on the road, and he just made the experience so, I don't know, flawless. Like, it was just easy. I remember one time Neil's band, A Day to Remember, was celebrating something in Michigan, and he like bought you guys alcohol.
Yeah, it was pretty rad. I think he like got us some champagne to really celebrate. That was whenever we won our lawsuit. We were on tour with him. It was in Detroit, actually. It was a big day for us. So he really knew when and what to do to make us feel welcome and at home, and that other people were there to support us and cheer us on in that really tough time for us. It was really cool.
All right, and real fast, we do have two new patrons today. We have Lars from the Netherlands, and Neil, we got Daniel, Travis Barker's photographer.
Daniel Rojas is fucking amazing, and what a great guy. I have nothing else to say other than just great things.
Find him on Instagram, Fog again, good dude. Happy to have him part of the community. He's gonna contribute. We're gonna enjoy it. So thank you.
But yeah, so without further ado, Mattew Flyzik, let's go, production manager.
Dude, you're like, I know I've probably said this, but you're who I look up to when it comes to touring and crew. Like, ever since touring with All Time Low and starting off, I was like, first thing that sticks out for me is when you saved like PDs and took us all to Morton Steakhouse or something, or buyouts. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was basically just hiding money and then revealed it all at the end of the tour. And be like, oh, look at all this money I saved you guys. Let's go eat some steaks.
That was awesome.
I mean, I remember whenever you booked us on the boat tour in Lake Shasta, and it was probably one of the best off days ever, and I just got to enjoy it by proxy. So
yeah, that was awesome.
That was like, you did that, Flyzik?
Yeah, because we had done it on Warped Tour a couple times. And then when we were on tour with Day to Remember, we were like, this is the best day off. Everyone's cool and hangs. Like, let's do this again.
He was right. It was the best day off.
Yeah, booking days off is awesome. And yeah, I just have very fond memories of working with you, especially when I was just starting and setting a really good example and keeping, wrangling a bunch of people who are probably similar age to you, but you just were much more mature.
Were you on? I was always like 2 years older than everyone. And for some reason, people looked up to me for that. I think it's because I could buy alcohol early on. So they're like, we got to be friends with this guy because we're only 20 and he's 22. If I bought them alcohol, the band would be happy. And then that's that. Happy band, happy tour manager.
It works in most aspects of life, I feel like.
Just keep your band happy. Adam, do I call you Adam or Elmakias?
You call me whatever you want. Well, I didn't mean that to sound the way it sounded at all.
All right.
Yeah, just Adam or Elmakias. You can call me Elmakias. I call you Flyzik, so.
And we've always went by last names. I think because when I toured at All Time Low, there was multiple Matt, so we just went by last names. Were you on tour Just Surrender?
Yeah, I don't technically consider that my first tour because they were forced to take me on tour by their manager, and I think they were very bummed.
Was it Lucas Keller?
Yeah, it was Lucas Keller, and he shoved me in the back seat with the tallest guy. I forget his name, and I was too young to know. I was just happy to be on tour, and he was like, kill me. This sucks.
So I don't ever delete emails, and so I typed in your name and looked at every email we've ever chatted with and went back to the very first one. So I remember that story and how we met.
What an amazing thing to have. Every email, so you can just be like, oh, actually, it was a Thursday at 12 p.m.
So funny story, my fiance works in music. She also works with All Time Low. So I typed in her name and I could pinpoint the exact day that we met in person. She came to a show and I left her like a ticket and we had talked on email and I was like, oh, I'll see you at the show.
That makes the story even that much better.
Don't delete your emails is the moral of the story.
Wow. Yeah. For everybody who's listening, I know we've told you before we have show notes, but we share them with the guest and sometimes they'll go in and add their own notes. Matt went in and did what we like to call TMing the notes, where basically he handled shit.
A little side story on how we met. I worked for All Time Low, who was like not the toughest band. Adam worked with all like the heavier bands and the hardcore bands. And so when we started hanging out with you, people wanted to be our friend then. They were like, all right, well, if Adam thinks they're cool, then I guess they're cool. And you're like our bridge to like cooler bands to hang out with.
Like a Day to Remember?
No.
Totally.
Not Like a Day to Remember.
That's funny because you were my bridge to validating myself as a teenager and being like, wow, I'm with a band that thinks I'm cool. I don't know why, but let's go. Well, how did you and Neil meet? Was it on tour?
Yeah, must have been like a Warped Tour.
Yeah, probably like, I think we were both on 2008 Warped Tour or 2009 Warped Tour.
Those years blur together.
But we never really hung out until we like actually toured together. There's just so many people on Warped Tour.
Right.
You know, you hang out at like the barbecues and stuff afterwards. So it wasn't until we like actually toured that we...
And I wasn't actually at those, like I was there in person, but I was not there
mentally.
You know, mentally. Yeah. So, you know, you're right. The first real time we hung out was on the Pierce Seville All Time Low Day to Remember house party tour.
To piggyback off what Flyzik said about, you know, me being his bridge or whatever to hang out with people, a big thing for me is when I see people I'm friends with who didn't know each other, meet each other and become friends, it makes me feel really good. And I specifically remember when Flyzik talked to, I think it was Neil and Jeremy on that tour. You guys were in the midst of your lawsuit and he started talking to you guys about that. And it was after a show and I know that you work really hard and I don't see you, I guess, turn off that much. And I saw you like relaxing and hanging out with them. And I was like, fuck yeah, this is awesome.
Funny story about we'll never forget this, but you guys won your lawsuit. I don't know if I should say their name, but we like sent you some alcohol and the card was congrats on your victory. That was so clever.
We appreciated that so much. Like I remember just like that day, I think it was in Detroit.
It was in Michigan. Yeah. Amphitheater.
The only reason I remember is because of how disgusting that trailer that the backstage rooms are in. It's like had like carpet in the bathroom. So you got out of the shower.
Sorry, Michigan.
Feel like, no, I mean, it's not their fault, you know.
Connor's in Michigan.
Just don't take a shower at the backstage of the amphitheater there because they have carpet in the bathroom, which is gross. So
nasty.
Man, it's cool like reminiscing about times you've had on tour with other people. And then even just you saying that, Flyzik, like I remember that, but it's not in my memory. And it's cool having people bring back other memories of yours that you cherish that you forgot you had. I don't know. Doing this podcast has been awesome for that.
It is crazy. I mean, I think I've toured now for 14 years. And you obviously don't remember everything that you've done, but just like certain things stuck out and you'll never forget. And it's cool to reminisce on the ones that do. And then some people, you'll talk to people and like I said, like they'll remind you of something that happened that you maybe had forgotten about.
Even having those multiple perspectives, like kind of like seeing it from someone else's point of view, you know, and being like, oh, I do remember that.
Okay, so I mean, you said you've been touring for 14 years, but prior to touring, like what got you initially interested in the music industry? Like what, I don't know, made you be like, oh, this is a thing I can do? I
started getting into music like as I started to get into high school. And then I just remember going to my first concert in 2000. It was Blink-182, Bad Religion, and Phoenix TX. I just thought it was so cool.
That's a lineup.
I mean, I loved Blink-182 at the time. So just seeing them, just being your first concert was cool. But I don't know, the production and like there was fire and all, you know, it just fascinated me. And then a few months later, Phoenix TX came back around but played a club. So I like begged my dad. I was like, oh my God, like that band was so much fun live. Like I want to go see them again. And so my second concert was Phoenix TX with Good Charlotte and Newfound Glory opening, which went on to become some of my favorite bands. And just seeing like going from an amphitheater show to like a small club show, like I was even more fascinated. Like, wow, like the vibe is so much different and the production's different and stripped down, but it's, you know, I don't know, just fascinated by how cool the show was. And it's like, I want to do that. I want to like go on tour and be in these clubs and be around this energy every night. And then the more I started going to shows, like the more I wanted to get involved and like, you know, you'd see vans and trailers on the road and be like, that's so cool. One day I hope that I'm in a van and trailer, you know, and then you get in a van and trailer and then you're like, well, this sucks. I hope we get to a bus someday. But I don't know, just going to concerts really just, I wanted to be a part of it.
Man, I wanted to go to that tour with Blink-182 and Bad Religion and Phoenix TX so bad, but my mom made me choose between Warped Tour that year and the Blink-182 tour. And I chose Warped Tour, which was awesome, but they made a DVD of that or whatever, like the Blink, like the Cut You Up band or whatever that opened that tour, like made the DVD of that show. Yeah. I was so jealous.
I mean, the old Warped Tour lineups were like legendary. Like
it was legendary, but
you probably made the right choice there, but still.
I went to the next year. I went to the Newfound Glory, Midtown.
That was awesome too.
That was like my first concert.
What was your first concert ever? Warped Tour?
Warped Tour was my first one. And then that was like my first show at like a arena. Like they played the Ice Palace in Tampa. And I was just like, this is insane. They had like the flaming fuck. And I was like, yes, I need to do this. I was the same thing. I was just like, yeah, I need to do this with my life. Like, you can do this when your parents aren't around. You can light fuck on fire. This is cool as fuck.
I'm pretty stoked that my first concert was Blink with Bad Religion and Phoenix TX. So most people are like, oh, I went to like a Britney Spears concert or like, some like pop thing from the 90s. Glad that mine was punk
Just
rock.
right to the cream of the crop.
I hold great pride in my first concert, and I was eager to get it out, but it's Linkin Park, Korn, and The Used. And I was just...
I love Linkin Park.
Dude,
I'm a huge fan.
Me too. And that was... Thinking back to that moment helps me remember what it's like to be a fan in an arena in the mosh pit and how it felt like. Literally, I was in the biggest crowd of people ever and danger was everywhere. And now you get to our level or you've done it for a long time and you go to a venue and it's almost like you're in a sandbox. You can just like, okay, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here. It's not overwhelming at all. But thinking back to that helps me remember what's going through all these fans' minds at a concert.
Feels like you're never going to be able to get out of there ever. Yeah. Like if you're in the middle, you're like, this is where I am now, the middle of this crowd forever. I exist only here now.
I take a lot of pride in being able to get from the stage to front of house very quickly. Like you just, once you've done it enough, like, like you have to go around and then cut through at a certain point and like, you just figure it out. And like, you'll be at like these crazy festivals. Well, you probably don't go to front of house very often. So maybe you don't know, but like, you just learn how to navigate massive crowds and how to get through quickly. And when you're a kid, you're like, this is insane.
It's those little things that you gain pride from. You're just like, I can leave in exactly 3 minutes and I will be there perfectly on time. And it's like the most weird thing that you can't time out most times, but it's like once you've done it for however long, it's just becomes second nature.
All right. So that's how you got started in the music industry. And then eventually you had to, change that into touring. And I looked at your notes and I like how you started because I think it's the best way if you don't know what to do to just get started. Sorry to give away your thing, but I'll let you explain it yourself.
So I actually get asked this question a lot by just people like, how do I get started in the music industry? And so for me, I was just very active in my local music scene. When I was in high school, I was in a shitty punk rock band and I was always the guy. I'd go to shows and I'd pass out flyers and like I was the one booking shows. So from that, I started making a lot of friends. It was essentially networking. Like, I'd go to other local shows and pass out flyers and meet those bands. And then, they'd help me meet people to book my own band on shows. And then I'd meet the guys booking shows and just met a lot of people. And then eventually my band sucked. So, they were going to break up at some point. But because I'd met so many people in other bands, through that, I met All Time Low. And when my band was done, they were like, why don't you just come on tour with us? We don't have anyone touring with us yet. We're about to go on this big nationwide tour in a bus with Amber Pacific. Why don't, you were always kind of like the manager of your band. Even though you were the singer, you were always like the guy who's like, taking charge and doing shit. Why don't you come out on tour with us? And I got there because I was so active in the music scene.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love hearing about people's starting steps because I don't know, you can't just decide you want to do it and then you can't just go right on the bus. And I'm sure if you just did that, I don't know, I would think it would be a tough learning process, but you kind of went right on the bus.
I mean, when people ask me, I always tell them to like go work at a venue or, work at your local radio station, which I also did, but just get involved because eventually you're going to meet the right person who will, want to take you on tour. There's plenty of times where we've needed an audio guy and, we think back to, we met that really cool kid who did audio in Chicago. I wonder if he would ever tour. The show sounded great that night. And then lo and behold, you find out he has toured before and you pluck him and take him on your tour. So it's be active in your local scene as much as you can.
You're like setting yourself up for those opportunities that you'd only get from the weird in-between meetings of like, we did an acoustic show. It's like, and you wouldn't even be there unless you were kind of volunteering at the radio station or something like that,
Right. Maybe something broke at a concert and, like the stagehand ran over and like helped fix your guitar. And then, a year later you need a guitar tech and you're like, remember that guy who like helped fix our guitar? Like, I bet he'd be a good guitar tech, and then once you get your foot in the door, once you do one tour, then you meet 100 other people and then, then you're good. As long as you're a good person and, do the job.
As long as you're not a dick.
Once you get that first tour, it really should set up whatever trajectory you're going to go from there. Because it's like, there is always going to be other bands on that tour. There is always going to be other needs and things that are just, hey, can you do this for me real quick? And then you get to meet all these different people, especially like Adam said, if you're not a dick, you get to go and really just skyrocket from there.
I mean, that's how every job I've gotten since All Time Low was just other tour managers that I met on the road just looking out for me. Like, hey guys, I'm not touring, anymore with anybody. If you hear of anything, let me know. And then, a friend will hit me up. Hey, I hear so-and-so's interested, in or needs a tour manager. Do you want me to put you in contact with the manager? And I mean, it's just about all who you know in this industry.
You mean you didn't get your jobs through your LinkedIn?
Not get my jobs through my LinkedIn. Does anybody actually use LinkedIn? Is that a real thing?
I've been invited to it 800 times, but I don't think there's a spot for me on there.
I logged in last week and I still had hair in my photo. That's how old it was. So I changed it. I was like, all right, I guess I'll do this. I only changed it because I was starting to use Clubhouse and I wanted to be able to link to my LinkedIn.
Is Clubhouse cool? I keep reading about it.
I think Clubhouse is very cool.
It's just like conversations and you can like tune in, right?
It's like curated, hosted conversations by people that are actually should be curating and hosting conversations. And like the other day, Elon Musk was talking about doing with Kanye West. And it's like every industry. So
do you get like a today on Clubhouse and you can like choose to tune in?
Yeah, there's a lot of events coming up and it's based on your Facebook friends and your contacts. And like think of it as a stage, but on your phone. So there's people who are talking and they mute and unmute themselves. And the people in the audience can raise their hand and you can bring them up to the stage and they can talk and ask a question and you can put them back in the audience.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've been getting into podcasts more and more. I feel like I'm late to the podcast game, but I guess it's like live podcasting.
Yeah. Well, because now everybody's so good at talking, or it's required so much for every industry, right? Like it wasn't like this years ago, at least in my experience. Like you didn't have to be well articulated to do every job. Now it's like, there's a whole level of, I don't know, what we're doing right now. Like TMs didn't do podcasts however many years ago, but thank you for being on here.
Back in the day, you couldn't really find any information on the people behind the scene and kind of what it took to get into the world and what it took to do any of those things. So I think that even people being willing to come on here and kind of share their stories and talk about all the different ways it took them to get to these careers is really, really cool. I know I wish I had that when I was in high school.
Do you think COVID helped, because I know there's a few of these that have started where, like touring guys are talking about what they do and they have the time to do it and people created it because of COVID.
Absolutely.
Were you guys doing this before COVID or was this coming the last year?
This definitely came from, Adam saying that he stopped doing all of the other things that he was doing. And he's like, I started working on this thing to really fulfill that void that was created from not being able to go and do live events or go and do all these things that he's so good at.
And I think the other thing is we've talked like the industry as a whole has shifted on its mentality. Like we could relate when there's like the old tour dogs or the people who've been there for a while. They kind of teach you through like, they're a little more hard and secretive, I guess you would say. And I think like with our generation, we're more open to teaching people and we want that camaraderie and like welcoming new people and people to learn and, intern and shadow. And you could do that before, but there wasn't like a way you had to like get in, it was such a hard gate to get through.
Our generation of touring guys is a little less salty. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're just like, it reminds me of in photography, it's like the film camera people. When I was getting into it, they're like, oh, you're shooting with a digital camera? You just think you're a photographer now? And I was like, yeah. And everybody who wants to do it can do it. But everybody before me was like, you can't be a photographer. And I was like, I never want to be that way. It felt so bad to receive that.
It's kind of cool that those situations happen because it kind of taught us all what we didn't want to be like, and I know that, for instance, when A Day to Remember was coming up, like we always were like, we'd go on support tours and we were really happy that we got to go on the support tours. But it was like, hey, get your drums off the stage and you got to be set up in less than 5 minutes. And whenever we were like, all right, well, whenever we get to headline, we're not going to make anyone take their drums off. We're not going to make anyone do these things. We're going to try and give as much space to these people as possible just because we know how that feels. And it was just like one little thing that we would do that was a change. But it was like, as it keeps going, I feel like, we all learned from what it felt like to have those negative situations. And now we're like, we hope to never continue those negative things.
All Time Low did a ton of supporting on their way up, which I got to do with them. And not to reiterate what you just said, but we always, at the end of the tour, would be like, okay, when you guys headline, what did we learn from that tour that we never want to do? Like, let's not treat other bands the way we were treated. They always, would look back on tours and be like, let's not do that. That sucked. And let's be the band that people like to tour with. And I think they were like, we're always tried to be as friendly to the support bands, have fun and just make like the touring environment a good environment, a lot of positivity.
Obviously, it's not the only reason, but I definitely think that's a massive reason that they've transcended all these bands that have kind of come and gone, and they broke through all of that. They are still around because of how good they are to people, how hard they work, and they're just fucking fun. They're like one of those bands that, like, even when everything's serious, they're like, oh, we'll make a joke about it. And then they still take care of you. It's like, it's awesome. I mean,
I think that goes to show that like any band, like you do need to take support tours and you do need to get treated like shit because you learn from it. You know, you see some of these bands that just blow up out of nowhere and, you know, they just go straight from nobodies to headliners. And they're the ones that treat bands like shit because they didn't, you know, like come up and, you know, get treated poorly. So they don't, you know, they're like, oh, you know, it's our show. And they're like, you know, just
ego.
Yeah.
We're breaking the system. We like fuck the whole generation after us. They're going to all be dickheads.
Also, Flyzik, when you were with All Time Low, you were like almost like a member of that band because you ran the meet and greets and you were on stage playing stuff.
You sang,
too.
right? Am I allowed to say
We don't
that?
talk about that. We don't talk about that.
You had an amazing voice, dude.
He is a good singer. It's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't know if we were allowed to say that. You were awesome.
I think they had me do that because it's like a joke at first, and then it just kind of like stuck. I don't know why that happened.
I remember seeing you at Bamboozle, and I was like, holy shit, we need a tour manager that sings that good.
No, you
like,
don't. You don't. Nobody needs that.
No, that was badass. And that was cool because, like, even then, I thought it was so crazy that you were like their age. I was like, we have like this 85-year-old guy that can, like, I mean, we never had an 85-year-old guy, but it felt like it considering that you were their same age as like the people you were touring with. And I was like, damn, that's cool. And they're like, got their shit together and they're fucking killing it. This is badass.
I have a pretty good Flyzik relic in my closet, in my like binder of everything. One of my favorite things he used to do is he tracked time between songs with All Time Low.
They would talk like, if they had an hour show, they would talk for 20 minutes.
Well, we know that they are heavily influenced by Blink-182. That's what they would do. It's like,
It was so funny.
you got to tell the jokes. That's the good part of the show.
Right. It would start to get so out of hand. I started writing down how much they talked just to be like, you guys could have played like 8 more songs, but you just talked a bunch of shit in between. Like,
That's awesome.
It makes me want to hear your band now from when you were young and you say they're shitty when I know that you can sing and
you're not
they
missing
probably
out.
weren't.
it sounded like every high school band that would.
All right, so if people want to get into tour managing, I don't know, if they were to look at themselves and kind of self-identify, they're like, hey, I have these qualities. I mean, what skills would you think that would need to be required for them to do this job?
So one of the major things of being a tour manager and a production manager is you have to be a forward thinker. You always have to think ahead. You know, you're planning a concert and things are always going to go wrong. There's no perfect show. So you need to think like, plan for the worst and expect the worst to happen and have, you know, plan A, B, and C. You know, expect your artist to ask for a million things, expect your crew to have missed something, always thinking of everything. I have that skill and just, you know, outside of touring, if, you know, I'm planning like a party or something, I'm thinking every hour that the party is going to happen. What are people going to be doing? Is there enough food? Is there enough drinks? Do we have enough ice? You know, just like every little detail. And I kind of think about that stuff in all aspects of my life. But that skill, you know, I put towards.
It translates really well, it sounds like.
Yeah. Also being very disciplined. I don't really have I do have a boss. The manager, the artist, you know, they're my boss, but they're not checking in on me. I don't work in an office. You know, they'll say the show is in 6 weeks. Make sure everything's ready for the show. And then it's up to me to like break up my time and, you know, work on my schedule, you know, to make sure that everything is ready. I can't put things off. You know, there's deadlines that only I know. So you have to like, I don't know, you have to monitor yourself. There's no one, you know, micromanaging you, which is good. You know, I can wake up whenever I want. I can work whatever hours I want. At the end of the day, when the show comes around, everything needs to be there or you're not going to have a job anymore.
I cannot imagine that massive amount of work just like looming. I'd be like a week out, I'd be like, I better start sending emails. Probably why I am not a tour manager.
You have to be organized. You have to be a leader. Everyone comes to you with their problems. You know, you don't just work for the artist, even though, you know, you're like the head of the crew. Like, you know, they're coming to you what they need and, you know, what they want. And, you know, you're the leader. You have to keep the ship, you know, organized.
I can think back to when I've been in situations in other countries or on tour and I was like feeling alone and I didn't want to ask the band member and be embarrassed, but I could always go to the tour manager and be like, dude, I know you have a lot on your plate. I don't ask much every tour, but I really need help with this one thing. And the tour manager is always someone like, if you ask them at the right time, they'll help you, you know, and like they always know the answer. Like I think we said before, it's kind of like a father figure, but they really are like, they know everything. and they've thought about everything.
We're kind of like a guidance counselor, like
Yeah.
we're there for everybody. We have our little office, you can close the door and you can talk about anything. With some tour managers are dicks and they don't want nothing to do with anybody.
Some tour managers that we've toured with have just been like this.
Straight face.
You just stare at you and you're like, do you like me? And should I leave your office now because I have I'm going to leave. Okay, I'll see you later.
Those are the guys that got to get off the road. If you're not having fun anymore doing it, like, don't do it anymore. Because there's so many people that want to tour and have fun touring. It sucks when you like these old jaded guys and girls and they just aren't enjoying it anymore. And it's like, I get it's your job, but touring is so much fun and it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to do it. Like, have fun with it.
I think a lot of that will get sorted out, especially now because of COVID. It's like all those people are going to go find something else that makes them happy. And then when it comes back, they're just going to be like, you know what? I didn't really like doing that anyways. And then hopefully the podcast will be like, we have this whole trove of people that we can, that even is a word. I might have just made it up. An entire group of people that you can choose from. And hopefully they understand how to shape their skill set to be better at whatever job it is that they want to do.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping. We want to siphon people into the industry, whether it be starting as shadowing or interning or something. There's obviously real world skills, but at least it won't come on tour and shit on your bus,
That's one thing that is for sure. It's like no one's going to be pooping on buses.
They got it.
I've always heard, not to get on that, I've always heard that there are buses you can shit on. They have like a grinder system.
Yeah.
The myth.
But I've never actually seen one. Is this thing real? Have you ever had one, Neil?
I mean, we've never had one, but when we toured with Silverstein, we were like, man, one day we're going to have a bus that you can poop on. We heard Silverstein has a poop grinder in there and they can poop on that bus. I was like, God, I hope
but did you ever see it or is this just a myth?
That's what I'm saying. I think it's just a myth. And like when we asked about it, they're like, we don't, I mean, Bill shit in there, but we don't know about that. And I'm like, are you just saying that so we don't try to come on here and poop in there?
Did you guys ever plastic bag it?
Oh, yeah.
Hot bagging?
Neil's
done
bagging,
it.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because we would always like eat like a random 7-Eleven taquito and it'd be like, oh no. It's like 4 a.m, everyone's asleep and you were ashamed. I'd be crying in the bathroom, the hot bag, I cannot wait to poop in a bag again. It's like, these are the things that always seem so awful. And now I'm like, yes, just let me poop in that bag. Let's do it.
What?
Yeah, I can't wait to tour again. I'm going to do all the worst parts by myself just to get back out there. I don't even care. It's fine.
What's Neil doing? I don't know. He's pretending he's late for bus call and he's locked off I don't know what he's doing.
Mary's like, please get him on tour again because he keeps pooping in bags in our bathroom and then he walks through the house. He just throws it in the yard.
And tell her to throw it out the window.
Our whole yard's filled with bags of poop. It's kind of gross, but
next time you change your baby's diaper, just like put it in a bag and like chuck it out a window.
this feels so good.
I think on this first episode, Neil, you promised this would be the most we ever talked about poop, and I think we broke that promise.
Hell yeah.
The podcast is called Don't Shit on the Bus.
Yeah.
We're going to bring up poop. So when it comes to daily responsibilities of a tour manager, what would be your daily responsibilities?
Well, Neil, since you asked, you just schedule the whole day in advance. There's this whole thing called advancing, which is the 6 weeks leading up to the show is you plan everything you do throughout the day. The load-ins, the sound check, the arrival times, what time doors are, set times, loadout, curfew, all that stuff. It's the touring production manager's job to build the stage and the lights and PA. And basically when you walk into a concert and you look up and you see everything, hanging from the ceiling, and the tour manager arranged all of that, hired the crew to do it, figured out the weights and all the specifications in order to do it. You coordinate the security. So, when you first walk in, whether you're getting wanded or metal detectors or any of that, the security staff around the room, the barricades, the tour manager advances all of that, and a lot of that has to do with the type of show it is and, the artist's needs. At a Data Remember show, you're not going to have seats on the floor. You're going to have barricades up and, security because people are going to be, stage diving and mosh pitting and all that stuff. Whereas at like Neil Young or whatever, you're going to have chairs and, security different, so the tour manager plans all that. You arrange everything backstage to the stuff that the fans don't see, the dressing rooms, the catering, the M&Ms that are split up by color, the staff, the signs. When you're in an arena, places are like giant mazes, so you have just hang signs and arrows. So when Neil walks in, he's not like, where's my dressing room? He can figure it out. You book hotels, you book flights, you book cars, trucks, jets, planes, like pretty much everything to get the artist there and make the show happen. The tour and production manager, or if it's the same person, plans all of it.
Yo, real fast, halfway through it, I feel like I forgot we're doing production manager and not tour manager because Flyzik started as tour manager. Have we misspoke a shit ton? I know you're on as production manager / tour manager.
So I do both, which some people do one or the other.
I would say, Flyzik, do you want to break down how you're kind of both right now and explain that real fast? Because just for our viewers to understand, I don't know.
Yeah. So a lot of tours and bigger tours, just because there's a lot of responsibilities, have a tour manager and a production manager. Coming up, I learned how to do both. So a lot of times I'll take on both responsibilities because they are pretty similar. The production manager handles everything in the venue that doesn't have to do with the artist themselves. So the production, the lights, the video walls, the security, the barricades, everything in the building, crew, the staff, the local crew, the trucks, the buses. The tour manager is specific to the artist. They book the artist hotels. They get the artist to the city. If the artist stays in a hotel, they book, cars from the hotel to the venue, back to the hotel. They make sure that the artist has the food that they need. Everything is in the artist dressing room. They are specific to the artist themselves. It is possible to do both, and you just kind of look after everyone all together. Or if you have a very needy artist or an artist who's busy and has a press schedule and their schedule doesn't link up specifically with the tour and they're off doing other things and then fly back in, you split the responsibilities just to make it a little easier on people.
But you do it all.
I do it all.
That's wild, because tour managing sounded overwhelming when we talked to Meg about just that. And we know that the lines are kind of blurred too sometimes, right? Like
most tour managers can be production managers and most production managers can be tour managers. You definitely help each other out. And with my current artist, Kygo, I do both, but we did an arena tour and we knew it would just be too hard for me to handle both. So we brought in separate production manager. And also being with the DJ, he was not traveling in buses. He had his own separate schedule. So whereas, the tour all travels together, he was flying from show to show. And so I needed to specifically be with him because his schedule wasn't lining up with the tour schedule.
You were talking earlier about how like all of these things are advanced, but they're directly related to what happens daily because you need to know every single aspect of all of the things you brought up to be able to manage everything and make sure it happens efficiently, make sure it happens on time. And like you said, if anyone has a question, they're coming to you because you have those answers, right?
Right. So you plan things, 6 to 8 weeks in advance because people are, the label will hit up the tour manager and say, hey, on day 18 of the tour, you're in this city. The artist needs to do an interview at a radio station that's 40 minutes away. What time are they going to be at the venue and what time do you need them back? And you have to know that answer. So you're planning so far ahead and you have everyone's schedules and when you're loading in, when your buses are arriving, because people are also trying to plan other things that aren't directly related to the show around where the artist is and when the show is.
So knowing all these things are key.
Wow. Yeah. It's so much information. I just want to I want to shadow you because I just want to see what your computer even looks like. It sounds like your level of organization is something I aspire to achieve. It just must be so well done.
I would say if my apartment caught on fire, I'd go back in to get my computer because there's just so much information on it. I would die if my computer stopped working.
Please don't tell me you only store it on your computer. You have to work on a Google or something.
Yeah, no, I keep things in Dropbox, but there are some things that I keep on my computer, sensitive information, passports and addresses and, certain things that I don't want floating around the internet. So, there are a lot of things on my computer that are only on my computer.
I've saw it in Dropbox recently. There's a vault and I don't know what it does yet, but I'm going to research it. And I think it might be used for and maybe
I don't even trust that stuff. It's still floating around in internet space somewhere.
Elon Musk's going to grab it out of the sky and do something with it.
Yeah.
Hey, fair.
I mean, all that stuff is just over my head anyways. I don't even know how to use it, let alone understand how to break it, crack it or whatever. I'm how do we put stuff in the vault?
Now that we know what you have to do during the day, if you could help us piece together when it happens and how it happens, that'd be great. And we broke it down morning load in setup, and I know that the way you tour isn't this way right now.
But I like how you broke it up. It made it easy for me to piece it together because a lot of things overlap.
How do you, because currently you've been with Kygo for 6 years as a production and tour manager. Do you guys do a lot of fly dates?
To only do fly dates. He did an arena tour, we've only done one, but the DJ world is just so different. And it took me a little bit to adjust and relearn how to do DJs versus how to do bands. Cause it's a completely different world.
So this stuff isn't entirely the same, but if you were to do a tour in a bus, this is what would happen right now.
Yeah. I based this off doing like a bus tour.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for having all the information. And
so let's say it's the first day of tour. Just kidding. It's not the first day of tour because we're already into that. So you're like 2 weeks into tour.
There we go.
You just wake up in your bunk. You're on the bus. What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
So the tour manager is always the first one up. And the first thing to do is you set an alarm knowing when you're going to arrive to the venue, because you need to get the buses and the trucks parked correctly. If you're on a big tour, there's only so many parking spots and these are big vehicles. So you need to make sure that they're like parked correctly so you can get your drivers who've been driving all night to their hotel because they sleep all day. So you need to get everybody parked correctly, because once you're parked, the drivers have to then leave and go sleep. And it's like illegal to move your bus. There's all these rules and regulations about, how often you can move your bus. So priority number one is get everybody parked correctly and get your drivers to their hotel because they're exhausted and grumpy and they don't want to be there anymore. Then you meet with the local production manager, whoever runs the venue. They unlock the doors for you. You go in the venue, you usually take a little like lap around the venue. They show you all the backstage rooms. They show you the stage. They point certain things, fire exits, just like the basic information out to you. They introduce you to, some people, that are going to be important. Usually you have a production assistant that kind of helps you throughout the day. You have a runner, so, a person who, does shopping and, has a car and gets whatever you need. You just meet like your key people for the day. Then you do something, depending on what size tour it is. If you're flying truss and lights, you bring your riggers in and you chalk the stage. Basically, they line up where everything's going to be and they look up at the grid and figure out, where it's going to fly. Because you can't put anything on the stage until you get the things that are in the air up in the air. Because once they're in the air, they can't come back down on the stage. So your rigging team comes in and they make sure that, they lay out the truss and everything, and then you start dumping trucks, which when you dump a truck, you do, if things are going to fly first. So you do the lights first, you get all those up in the air off the deck, and then you bring in your audio because that gets flown up in the air. And then the last truck you dump is your backline, the things that go on stage once the stuff that's in the air is up in the air.
When you meet those people in the morning, like your runner and your local people that aren't on tour with you, do you grab their phone numbers and such like that? Or do you have it ahead of time, or what do you do?
You have most of their information if you did a solid advance. And advancing is when, just you communicate back and forth with the venue the weeks leading up to the show. You get all of their information because a lot of times you'll get to the venue and they won't be there yet, or, they're not like waiting out the front door for you. You have to, reach out to them. So there is some exchanging numbers, and usually, in a bigger tour, you carry two-way radios. So you give certain, people that you're going to be communicating with a lot throughout the day, you give them their own radio. So you guys don't have to keep calling each other's cell phones. You can just talk freely, no matter, wherever they are in the building.
That makes sense for sure. Sorry, I would like, when you said that, I was like, oh, I have a question about this because I don't know how it works.
I always like see all of those numbers in the tour book, and then I like put it in my backpack and never see those numbers again.
Yeah, you don't need those numbers. I don't ever save any of those numbers.
I guess like having walkie-talkies is like the sickest thing ever. Yeah, I guess that's why I'm not allowed to have one like on the band bus, just because like I'll like randomly talk to people throughout the day and they're like, can you like stop doing this? We're trying to like work for real. And I'm like,
I like when I end up with multiple radios or walkie-talkies. You have to do like a crisscross action, and one's on this shoulder and one's on this shoulder. You're communicating with so many people, you need more than one.
That's funny. Yeah, you look really important then. I need one just so people stop stopping me at every entrance with a camera, just so they take me seriously.
I always mean to give one to photographers, but they're always like running around, like crawling around, climbing under like weird holes and stuff. And they're like, it just gets caught on things. And so they end up taking it off, and then they leave it somewhere, and then they forget it. And then you're like, well, that thing costs $800. So
oh my God,
that's your cost.
It's your fault. You're buying expensive walkie-talkies. God damn it.
Adam, you best be glad that no one gives you a walkie-talkie.
I'm responsible.
Not that you aren't responsible.
I'm going to make a fake one.
But you only have so many items that you bring on tour, because I feel like if you had more, you might leave them.
Oh yeah, that's fair. I'm just going to get a walkie-talkie that's like part of a shirt. It's just going to be like sewn on. And when I put the shirt on, it's just part of it.
We had a kid in Australia once at an all-time low show who came with a fake walkie-talkie and snuck in.
So sick.
We eventually caught him and kicked him out, but he was smart enough. He was like, if I just have a walkie-talkie and a fake laminate, they'll just like wave me through. And he was 100% right. He walked right into the building.
We do not advocate for this.
That won't happen anymore because of this guy. Now we've stepped up security, so don't even try it, everybody out there.
They have to have 2 walkie-talkies now.
You have to have better laminates.
We only use a specific brand, which we're not telling you. So
oh yeah, never post your laminates online. That's something we talk about. You don't want to.
That drives me nuts when people do do that.
Yeah, I can't imagine. That's like probably a big security risk, huh?
Yeah. Laminates, and not just laminates, but like you give satins out to people that like only come one day. You tell them don't post it. So I'm like, okay. But at the end of the night, they're like, well, the concert's over, and then they post it. But you use that same satin the next day and the day after. And so like the next city is like, oh yeah, well now we know what it looks like. Some kid goes to FedEx and makes a fake version, and your whole security system's fucked.
They're like in Philly and they write Pittsburgh because that's what it said on the one before. And they're like,
Yeah.
they're like, your pass says Pittsburgh and we're not there. They're like, oh, well, all right, we'll see you later.
I would always do sports teams. So for like Pittsburgh, I'd do like the Penguins or the Steelers.
That's a good move, man.
Taking notes, Neil?
Yeah, this is
So
great.
it's just more fun. And then people are like, oh, we hate the Steelers. Like, why do we have to have Steelers on our thing all day?
Hey, you want to come on the show or not? After you load everything in, you get to your setup, and what happens during setup?
So once everything's in and on stage and on the floor, then you finish building the stage, you build the lights, you get everything in place. Then your lighting guys and your video guys, they come in and they have to like make sure everything works. The lighting guys have to program the lights. So they have to, you can't just hang a light bulb. You have to point it in a certain direction and then make sure it's moving the way it's supposed to move. And like, every room is different. So you have to make sure it's pointing at, if Neil is standing in a certain place on stage, the lights that are supposed to be on Neil are actually going to be on Neil. That's called programming the lights. They do that. The video guys make sure the video works. The audio team, it's called ringing out the PA. You just make sure the PA sounds right. Every room is different. So the audio bounces in certain ways. So, they have to fine tune the PA every day to make sure it, sounds right and is ready for the artist when they come in to sound check. And then you also have to set up the backstage. You have to, there's 8 dressing rooms and there's 4 bands. You have to sign each room. A data member is going to be in this room. Opening band 1 is going to be in this room. Neil needs his own room, so he's in this room.
Whoa, okay.
You sign the backstage and you set it up. So it's, when everyone, the crew and the artists and everybody walks into the building for the first time, they know where to go. The rooms are, set up and, you make it your home for the day.
You, as the tour manager or production manager, you're kind of overseeing all of those things. And so if anyone has problems, they're coming to you.
Right.
Yeah, you know everything that's going on at all times in all areas, basically.
We're just going to keep saying that because you're just a badass, and we just need to reiterate like how important these positions are and how much responsibility is on you guys' shoulders. And to be completely honest, almost every tour I've done, the production manager and the tour manager do such a good job that I don't even notice half this shit even.
And that's good. It's people usually don't. The artist specifically, you only notice things if they're wrong. It's the same thing every day and you get comfortable with it. And as a tour manager, I'm happy if the day just goes smooth and nobody says anything, because you usually only hear if like, hey, where's my so-and-so? Or if you're Justin Bieber, where's my hot tub today? Or, like whatever it is, they usually only notice when something's missing. So if you don't hear from anybody all day, then you did your job.
I thought I was the only artist that had their own hot tub every day, but Justin.
Yeah, it always amazes me, like just asking you what you do and you're like, well, I make sure that everybody else does everything, and then everything.
So after you get all set up, this sounds like when it would be Soundcheck, like just from my own experience. What, is that not true?
No, I just like how you phrased it. You're like, based on my own experience.
I've only done it a couple times, but...
So leading up to Soundcheck, the PA's ready, the lights are ready, the deck is clear, there's no like dead cases, which for those who don't know, dead case is when you take like a lighting fixture out of the case, and then you close the case, that is now a dead case because there's nothing in it and you don't need it. So you get rid of it. So you make sure like, the room's clear and it looks like how it's going to look for the concert. Because you don't want your artist coming in and there's like stuff, all over the room. So, if sound check's at 3:00, you and your crew know that by 3:00, the room's got to look show ready. Then you go and make sure your artist is awake or at the venue or where they need to be.
Alive.
Yeah, alive, not hungover, whatever it is. They've eaten lunch, they've gotten whatever they need to now walk on stage and, perform for nobody. So you gather up your band and you get them to the stage and you basically hand them off to their crew and you say, all right, guys, they're yours now. The guitar techs meet up with the guitar players and, go through their guitars and, the band walks on and they start doing their thing. And then it's your job to make sure that the band is happy and they have everything that they need and it's going to sound and look right, but also get them off stage by a certain time. Because if you have an hour sound check, you need to get them off by that hour because there's many other things that then happen after sound check before doors. And, a lot of times bands want to just hang around around and fool around and have fun and play, all day long. But there's other things that have to happen. So you make sure they're happy and then you kick them off.
I mean, and if you leave a guitar player up there for too long, I'll turn knobs for like 5 hours. So
right. I mean, you don't really get to play with your instrument all that much. It's either packed away in a truck or it's too loud to just, start playing backstage. So, that is your time, your chance to have fun on stage and, do whatever you want. But there's only so much time that you can be on stage.
So it's like, as they're wrapping up, what do you do during soundcheck? So like, you're getting them up there. Do you kind of just hang out during soundcheck, or are you like kind of getting stuff done? Or
I usually like to hang out around soundcheck. It's a stress-free usually environment, and you just like to make sure that everyone's happy, the band's happy. You can a lot of times they'll have fun with it. They don't always play their own songs. All the time I used to play Foo Fighters songs or like Jimmy Eat World, and it's just like fun to just stand on the side and watch these guys have fun being a band. And, as someone who was in a band, it's just fun to be around that. And
it's always cool too. In like those moments, like you get those like special times that nobody else gets to see. And I mean, getting to tour with other bands, like I would always go to watch Soundcheck and I wasn't even in their band. I'm like, this is sick.
Totally. When we would do support tours, I loved watching bands Soundcheck because they're being themselves up there. They're not putting on an act. There's nobody, there watching them. They're just like having fun being a band. And it's cool to see that sometimes, and they're fooling around and just having a good time.
It's like, so as Soundcheck kind of gets wrapped up, what are you looking at timing wise in the day at that point?
You're making sure that the other bands are there and ready to go. Or, sometimes there's fans that do get to watch Soundcheck, or, you're just making sure that, let's say Soundcheck ends at 4 and doors are at 6. That there's 2 hours now that you need to get every other band set up on stage and backlined, which is when you set up the bands in reverse order. You need to sound check the other bands. You need to make sure dinner is going to be ready if, you're serving dinner to everybody. You need to make sure that the venue is getting all of their stuff in place. Usually you don't set up the barricades and stuff until then. You need to make sure that security is showing up. If you have any meet and greets to do, you're getting those people inside, you're getting your band ready, and you're running the meet and greet itself. Your merch sellers, they have to be ready before doors open. So you're making sure that, their merch displays are set up and they're at their merch displays ready to sell. Because, a lot of kids, as soon as they come in the room, they want to buy a t-shirt. So, you're making sure those guys are ready. And then, right before doors happen, you make sure that there's music playing and the lights are off. Security's all in their place. Your band is in a secure place. They're not like lingering around the front doors, because before doors, everybody walks around, wherever they need to be. But you have to make sure your lead singer is not just like wandering the room when you let thousands of people in, they're going to get mobbed. So, you just make sure everyone's in their place and the support bands are ready and everyone's aware when the show is going to start. You open doors.
That's when the fun starts. Doors.
Did I jump there? Did I?
No, you segued perfectly. I think like kind of telling us the time in which you kind of end Soundcheck and then kind of rolling into all those responsibilities that happen before doors it's like exactly what we were looking to kind of get across, and you nailed it. You're just that good. Do you want a job on a podcast?
Funny story, Neil. Matt was the other person, like I was trying to find a co-host and Matt was the other person I talked to.
Matt, do you want my job?
If you're ever
We
sick,
just trade off.
I don't have the star power to draw an audience.
Me neither.
Neil's ever sick, Flyzik's coming on against his will. I'm just calling him up.
I think that would be amazing.
That would be fun.
I honestly have a lot of fun doing this, and I think it's really cool getting to kind of talk to all the different people to understand the intricacies, like how deep these things go, because from an artist perspective, I don't really get to see a lot of it. And you said it when it's like, unless it goes wrong, I don't know. And it's really cool for me to learn all these details about everything that's going on, because it is what we do. And now I'll have such a deeper appreciation for everyone around me working and stuff. Pretty cool.
It would be fun to do this again with other crew members, because like you said, everyone has their own perspective of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And to hear like, a guitar tech's day in comparison to my day, I think I understand what they're doing all day long and they're where I need them to be at the times that I need them to be there. But, I don't really necessarily know what they do the other times of the day. So in order to have this same conversation with other people would be fun.
Yeah. You get them on, they're like, well, I do a lot of bunk time.
Go to Chipotle, I get coffees.
So far, we've done like tour manager, we've done merchandise manager, like we've gotten through a few of them. And everybody's job, I'm like, I thought my job was hard, and it's not. My job is incredibly easy. It's hard in a different way. I have to be awake a lot, but these people have to do so much more.
Exactly. I'm going to have to like never complain again, because I feel like an idiot. Every episode we do, I just feel like, oh man, I complain doing nothing. And everyone else is like working so hard.
People always ask me, do you wish you were an artist and not a crew member? And I say absolutely not. The pressure to be an artist is like on tour, it seems like a lot more fun, but the pressure to go on stage every night in front of thousands of people and perform like to the level that you guys do, and not even like considering writing music and putting out good music and the press. And it's like, I don't know, it's a lot of pressure to be an artist. And I totally respect what you guys have to do day in and day out. I would much happier just be a nobody that just, nobody knows who I am or what I'm doing and just kind of like go about my business throughout the day.
I'll just reiterate the compliment, and we couldn't do it without everyone who does such a good job behind the scenes that a lot of times no one even sees because they do such a good job. But, it's a big family that kind of helps everyone work better. And I'm sure you know this because of how awesome All Time Low is to tour with. But it's like when you have good people to work for or work with, it's like you don't even really mind doing the hard work or the things that kind of come with responsibilities, or you know what I mean? It's like when we go out there, we know we're kind of representing our crew and everyone that kind of travels with us, and it makes it that much easier.
Rad. I like these little side tangents we're getting on. It's nice.
I like to talk.
Okay, cool. To get us a little bit so we can keep getting through the day here. So doors open, the fans are coming in, the band is not out there in the audience, not getting mobbed. The next thing on your list is the show, or do you have anything that happens like between doors and the show for you?
I guess we can roll both into each other. With doors, I always like to stand at the front doors when they open.
Okay.
Just to make sure that the venue is doing their job and opening on time. A lot of times the venue would tell you they're ready, and then you're like sitting back in your office and like they don't actually open. They're just telling you that on radio. I like to be standing there and be like, okay, you said 6 o'clock. Are your security guys in place? Are your ticket takers in place? Let's see doors open at 6 o'clock. And that's just like a trust thing with the venue. And I like to be there, with the production manager, and we watch doors open and we high five and say, all right, show's on, let's move on to the next thing. And I also like to make sure that as fans are coming in, if there's, they're getting wanded or there's, metal detectors, make sure it's happening and they're being safe and protecting you and the artist, but also like doing it at a rapid enough pace that you're going to get fans in quick enough, because the last thing you want to do is have to hold your show and stall the delay of it because there's not enough fans inside. People paid tickets to see a concert. If security's not getting them in quick enough, then that's not fair to them that they're not getting to now see the concert, But let's say everything's going smooth, fans are coming in, everyone's safe. Next job is to make sure that the first band gets on stage at 6:30 or 7:30, whatever the start time is, make sure they're on time, and then make sure they get off stage on time. With younger bands and a lot of opening bands, sometimes they're not disciplined enough to get off stage on time. And then you start, yelling at other tour managers, being like, oh, 6:31, like you're supposed to be off at 6:30. Now you're pushing my show, like there's a curfew. If you can only go so late, and then it's going to start cutting out of the headliner set. So, you're just at that point kind of being in charge and monitoring and make sure everyone is following the schedule and abiding by the rules. You monitor the changeovers, Band A comes off, Band B comes on, Band B has to start on stage. Make sure everything's working. Make sure the lights are working. Make sure that everything sounds okay. You got to make sure your artist is back in the building. A lot of times after sound check, the artist disappears. Never know what they're doing. They go off into
We're buying Pokemon cards.
Yeah, catching Pokemon.
Yeah, come on.
Sometimes I'll go to a hotel, whatever it is, playing Pokemon. But you just make sure they're back in the building so that you can get your own band on stage on time. And then when it comes to be showtime, you get your boys or your boys and girls, whatever your artist is, get them on, make sure they're happy, make sure they're excited, make sure they have what they need. And then they're off and running. And then, that's that. They do their thing.
And you get to watch the show, sit back and relax, take a few deep breaths.
I usually watch 1 or 2 songs, make sure that, the show is flowing, it looks good, people are excited. And then there are things to do during the show. Typically, the tour manager and the production manager, once the show is up and running, you go and get paid. And getting paid is more involved than just the promoter handing you a check.
I need money. Please give it to me.
There's 100 people, we'll just say 100 people. There's so many people that run the show, and there's so many things that people had to buy, a lot of costs involved. And those costs get broken down into the cost of the show, and that affects what the artist gets paid. And so you sit together with the promoter and you go through every single cost, and they show you every single receipt of everything that went into making that show happen. And you discuss it, and if they said there's 50 stagehands, the production manager's job to count and, be sure that there actually were 50 stagehands, because that's what you're getting charged for. So,
wow.
You go through and you discuss all the different costs of the show, and then you guys agree on the amount of money that the artist gets paid for the show. and then you go sign off, and they eventually do hand you a check. But sometimes there's a little bit of a arguing that goes back and forth over, certain things, and this didn't show up, or that was here, this wasn't there. That stagehand was here, but they didn't, actually do their job. They just kind of stood around. There's a lot of discussion that goes into settling the show, which is what it's called. But eventually you get to a number and you agree, and everybody shakes hands, and the artist gets their money. And so you do that while the band's on stage. So when they get off stage, you can do the loadout process, and you can focus your attention back on your band. Because when they're on stage, your guitar techs and your audio crew, and those guys are taking care of the band. At this point, you're not, you're always in charge of the band, but you're trusting that the guys you've hired can take care of the band for the hour or 90 minutes that they're on stage, and you don't have to be there to, look over them.
Like, how important is understanding like a contract or being able to like negotiate those things for, I guess a production manager or a tour manager?
Just like any contracts, they're not worded very easily. It's contract lingo, and there's, sometimes contracts are very straightforward. The band gets paid X, and then you get paid, if there's 3,000 people show up, after 3,000 people, the band gets, 85% or whatever it is of, the money after that. But sometimes it really does come down to, you have to deduct the cost of the show out of, the total money that was made, and then the promoter takes a share and the artist takes a share. And so it's, you have to really read and understand the contracts and the wording and, exactly what you're dealing with. For me, working with All Time Low from when they were a smaller band to a bigger band, their contracts got more involved as they got bigger. So I got to learn, I got to grow with them. I learned very basic contracts, and as their career got bigger, their contracts got more involved, but I kind of learned with it.
Well, I was just going to ask, like as you were kind of coming up, did you look up to larger bands' tour managers as like mentors, and did they kind of walk you through those situations, or how did that work?
Always. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of guys I looked up to. They wouldn't necessarily let, teach you about settlements, because you kind of keep that's private information. You don't talk about what bands are getting paid, but they do give you insights on like things to look out for. You'll hear them talking, this promoter was sketchy and tried to like pull one over me on this, or, like they stiffed us here. They didn't, you learn things that promoters do. Not saying all promoters are bad. Some promoters out there, some of my best friends, but there are sketchy promoters, and they do try and like make a little extra money, here and there. And so, having other tour manager and production manager friends, you learn about those things and what to look out for, and also how to save your band money. You can spend a ton of money to get, a result, or you can, cut costs in certain ways that you still get the same result, but you saved your band a bunch of money. And at the end of a tour, if you can save your band a ton of money, you're going to get rehired, because as much fun as they had, you're going on tour to make a profit. And if you spend all their money, then, what's the point of going on tour? You learn how to save your band money.
So you do all of that during a show. Like you settle the show, you get all of those things taken care of. So when the band comes off, they're like, all right, next thing, we're moving on. We're going back to the hotel. We're loading out. We're doing these different things, right?
Yeah. The band usually comes off stage and, they start wanting things again. At that point, there's a lot of adrenaline running, but they're also, everyone's hungry.
What do you mean? We're like giant babies.
People want their beer, people want to eat, people want to shower. And a lot of times you only have a certain window of time to get a lot of things done, because you have to get on the bus and get to the next venue. And, you only have so many hours to get to the next city. So yeah, you got to make sure you have the paycheck in hand before you start worrying about all the other things.
They're like, all the stuff's out of the venue, and now the
door's shut.
Yeah. Oh no, we didn't get paid yet.
So show's over. We can briefly go over Loadout and aftershow.
Loadout I'll split this up between tour manager and production manager. Loadout for the tour manager is refocus on the band. Get them food, get them beer, whatever they want, make sure they're showered. If they're going to a hotel, get them in their cars to the hotel. My life is easier the quicker I get the band out of the venue, because then I can refocus on other things. A lot of times the band wants to stay and hang out in the dressing room and play video games, and I just want to get rid of them. Sorry, Neil, but no,
it's fine.
Once the band's gone, it's one less thing to worry about, and you can refocus on the crew and, getting all of them out of the building. For the production manager, as soon as the show ends, you start breaking down the show, because you only have so much time to get everything out of the venue, into the trucks, packed in a very specific way, and then get the drivers off to the next venue. And you know exactly how long it's going to take to drive to the venue. And sometimes you only have if you're leaving at midnight and it's an 8-hour drive and your load in is at 8 a.m., the trucks have to leave by midnight or you're going to be late for your next show. And if you're late at all for your next show, the whole day is then ruined. You have to get there on time. The production manager's job is just to get the show down and out. You get your truck drivers and your bus drivers, you get them food, you give them little like bags, brown paper bags of food. Full story, you don't ever give a driver turkey because as we all know from Thanksgiving, turkey makes you tired. So you don't give a bunch of drivers turkey. So never a turkey sandwich. But yeah, get everybody out of the venue and on to the next show.
It's kind of crazy to think about that because from an artist's perspective, it's like, I'm always like, we're not going to move from here. You guys don't have to worry about us. But really, we're just making everything harder. I had no idea.
You're not really making it harder, but the production manager's kind of like not tiptoeing around, but like ready and waiting for you to need something. Whereas if you're not in the venue, then they can just kind of focus on other stuff. But, if I have a band in the building still, I'm like ready to like take care of something.
So like in the back of your mind, no matter what you're doing, you're like, okay, I can do this, but I also have to be ready just in case they over there need something right now.
Right. I don't want to be too far away in the building that if they call and like, hey, I'm trying to shower, but I don't have a towel. You're like, oh, fuck, like I got to go find a towel for this guy. And I'm a 6-minute walk on the other side of the room, like
after this podcast, I'm going to be a much better person to be on tour with. I will lead by example for the rest of my friends in the band and other bands.
You'd be like, guys, I know about this because I do a podcast on it. Trust me, we need to leave the venue. We need to go.
The rest of the band's
right
like,
now.
Fuck off, Neil. Yeah, go away.
If we just want to do this one small thing, it will honestly make them so much happier and their day so much easier. Let's just give this to them.
I'm just thinking about all the times that we were just like riding scooters around the venue or like whatever we'd just do after the venue, like goofing around, and how it was so careless from...
Your tour manager's like, hey, everybody having fun? In the back of his mind, he's like, get out of the building.
And that's the hardest thing for me is like, I'm like, we're like the easiest band to work for because blah, 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 this, that, and the other. And I'm like, actually, we play video games until the last minute that we're allowed to be in the venue. And a lot of times that's when we'll be like, all right, now we're getting in the shower.
You guys don't realize there's like 4 stagehands waiting outside your room, ready to roll that case out.
No, I feel like an asshole.
It's okay, Neil. Growth. It's all about listening and growing. And that's what we're doing, man.
When I come out of this pandemic, I'm going to be a better man.
Neil's going to be pushing his own case. Like, I got it, guys.
I have done that before. One time I decided that I like, not even just like saying this, like I wanted to learn what it took to do this stuff. And I was like, I'm going to load out. So I did the push with them. And then I drove for the opening band on one tour. We took Wage War on tour. And our tour manager's probably like, you cannot fucking go and drive the other
your
band.
tour manager's probably freaked out. Like, oh my God, he's not going to make it.
And in my mind, I'm like, I'm doing a really cool thing for this band. It's going to be badass. I'm going to drive them. And I'm really just ruining everyone else's day. He probably couldn't sleep. He's like, oh my God, Neil's going to not show up.
That's actually cool. That's like a cool tour story to tell. Like, yeah, I drove the opening band. That's awesome.
It was actually, this is the one thing I've noticed is that like everyone kind of coming up now is like way more organized than we were. Like back in the day, it was just like we had one binder with MapQuest directions when we were coming up. And it's like by the third day, like we were staying at someone's house and none of that even fucking mattered anymore. It's like, these don't work.
We also toured before like our early touring days in vans, like before the internet was really a big thing. Like you did have to go to a venue and you would ask like, can anybody put us up for the night? I mean, we would sleep on so many like random basement floors and stuff. And because you couldn't communicate with those people before the show or like prior to meeting, getting to the show to arrange those things. And you didn't have the money to book hotels. So booking a hotel was your kind of like your last resort. And like you said, you're printing out MapQuest directions. Like you would never do that anymore.
Yeah, we just stay at whoever would take us anywhere, like just like college houses on campus. It didn't matter. You're just like, okay, let's go there.
Well, you wouldn't even do that nowadays. It's like kind of like, it's just, I don't know. I just feel like it's different.
Yeah.
Then it was like, hey, let's ask this 17-year-old guy if we can stay at his parents' house with them. And it was like 8 of us.
I had bands stay at my place all the time.
Oh, I know. And it was great. And it's like that back then, it didn't even seem weird. It seemed awesome. We're like, yeah, we have these friends in Virginia and we'll stay with them. And we got these friends out in Arizona and they're always fun. And it's like, once you kind of started touring a couple times, you kind of knew in those areas, like, oh, they'll let us stay for sure. And I don't know. You just learn that stuff, I guess. And nowadays, I don't even think you do that. Now it's like, we have our whole tour booked on Travelingo or whatever the fuck it's called.
Do people even tour in vans and trailers anymore? Is that a thing?
Mostly sprinters, I would say.
Well, it's like sprinters, and then it's like, because I feel like when we were coming up, they didn't have bandwagon, so it was just like there was this gap of like, one day we'll be in a bus, maybe, hopefully one day, maybe. And now they're like, yeah, fuck the van, we're going into the bandwagon, it's fine, we'll just
I guess there is that
for a
step
while.
in between now, but we didn't have that. I've never been in a bandwagon. We did our time in vans and trailers, and then we went to buses before bandwagons even existed.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think I remember they were invented in like 2011 or something.
I remember seeing them pop up on Warped Tour, and I was like, what are these things?
We always had that one tour where it was like, are we going to make enough? And we're moving to a bus because we have to physically have too many crew members or too many people. But it's like, we're not getting paid that much, but hopefully we'll sell enough merch and then we'll just figure it out. And there was like 1 or 2 tours where it's like, well, we're just going to make it happen.
And then once you switch to a bus, you're like, we're never going back.
Never going back.
It's like, oh shit, it's badass to have a bed.
Well, I think that sums everything up, right? Did we get through everything? I wasn't quite sure where we left off on the after show.
I think so. I didn't mention bus call, but I think I mentioned what it.
Bus calls when you leave.
Yeah.
Bus calls what you don't miss.
Yeah, you don't miss it.
And you find all of the drunk people and make sure they're on the bus.
Well, I feel bad because you have a lot of stories here, but we're definitely at our time limit. So we'll have to have you back on the podcast.
Let's get one good story in there.
One story or anything you want to share.
I saw Mariah Carey's name on here.
So Kygo did the iHeartRadio festival, and his DJ booth was too big to fit on the stage for changeover. It was taking too much space. So it's like, well, let's just put it on, give me 4 motors. We'll just put it on, strap it up, and we'll just lift it up into the sky. And we're like, well, this thing weighs 3,000 pounds. They're like, we're not really sure if we can do that. And I was like, well, we don't really have any other option. So sure enough, they did that. And then we were on right after Mariah Carey, and she's standing on stage, getting ready. It was one of those turntable stages.
Yeah, spins.
Yeah, she's in the back, getting ready to go on, and we're standing on the side of the stage, kind of starstruck, oh my God, it's Mariah Carey. And then I look up and I see her 3,000-pound DJ booth just dangling above her. I'm like, if this thing wasn't strapped in right and it falls, we're gonna kill Mariah Carey.
No,
that would be terrible. That sounds like a movie scene.
It should be a movie scene. It sounds like Kygo's life is a movie.
The DJ scene is pretty wild. It's so much different than the touring we're used to.
We're like, we got to rent a jet ski one time on an off day, and he's like, we flew my piano up to the top of a mountain and then did 3 backflips off of it, and then it almost killed Mariah Carey.
You put 2 stories together, but I do like that one better. I think you made a better story.
Oh, that wasn't the story? That's what I heard. It's fine.
Okay, wait, we have 2 last things before we go. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. This was great. We appreciate you
Thanks
dearly.
for having me, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah. And last question before our send-off. Neil, you want to hit him with it?
Do you wear shower shoes or not when you just exist?
No,
I don't.
In the shower.
I never wore shower shoes.
Yes.
Ever, which is so nasty. But
No,
it's good.
I don't know. I never got a foot disease or anything. I don't know. I always survived.
human bodies are amazing things, and shoes are just kind of amazing, you know?
I was a big bar soap guy. If you get when you on tour, buy a bunch of little bars of soap, and then you don't need a washer or anything. You just use the bar of soap, and then you leave it at the venue. You're done with it. And every day you have a new little bar of soap.
I always shower after the guy with the little bar of soap, and then I just use his.
Just reuse his bars. Nice. Kevin, take it away, bud.